She discovered her strength after fleeing a toxic marriage and uncovered a mafia boss next door. Emily stood in the middle of her new, dilapidated living room, boxes stacked like the remnants of her former life, a tumult of emotions boiling beneath the surface. Breathing in the musty air, she felt a heady mix of triumph and terror. She had escaped her toxic marriage, the endless cycle of broken promises, but the weight of uncertainty pressed heavy on her heart. As her spirited 8-year-old daughter, Mia, played in the yard, her laughter echoed like shards of glass. Was she doing the right thing? Their future lay tangled in chaos, and the new neighborhood, once painted as a fresh start, felt shrouded in dim shadows. Days passed, and Emily dedicated herself to making this place home, her only constant being the supportive text messages from her parents reminding her of her worth, filling her spirit with warmth. But beneath the surface lay the nagging worry of bills piling up, budgets tightening, and the deep fear of failing Mia. She recalled her students, their eager faces seeking guidance and reassurance, and she questioned if she could shine bright enough for them while navigating her own fear-laden storm. One afternoon, while helping Mia paint the fence, a chill cascaded down Emily's spine. A commotion erupted next door, the Marino family's yard cloaked in menacing whispers. Curious, Mia wandered closer, and Emily's heart raced as she rushed to her side, panic gripping her as if it were a vice. Shadows loomed larger than life, and the name Tony Marino flitted through Emily's mind like a dark bird overhead. Before she could fully process the implications of Mia's innocent play, an elderly man approached from a few houses down. Harold, a retired detective, eyed her with a knowing look. "You should keep a close watch, dear," he warned, his voice gravelly with age. The wisdom in his gaze stirred something within her, a flicker of bravery igniting her fear. Could uncovering the truth about the Marinos be her path to reclaim power? Before moving further, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As days turned into weeks, Emily grew increasingly aware of the danger surrounding her. Conversations drifted through the wind from the Marino household, coated with threats and veiled intentions. The stakes heightened, as Tony's presence haunted her thoughts. Was she courageous enough to seek justice? Each moment morphed into a moral labyrinth, a cacophony of fears battering her resolve. The thought of exposing Tony gnawed at her conscience with every inquiry, the weight of his retaliation pressed heavier, threatening to crush everything she fought hard to rebuild. With each secret tip she gathered, her heart drummed confusion coiling into determination. What if Tony found out? Could exposing his life pull her into depths she had fled from? Her thoughts spiraled as the reality of her circumstances became achingly clear. She was on a precarious edge. One misstep could cost her not just her safety, but her daughter's as well. As she prepared to confront the shadow lurking next door, the line of good and evil blurred. Could she defy fear and reclaim the light that felt like a lifetime away? The mornings following her decision were laden with tension. Emily rose with the sun, the haunting silence of her home pressing against her as she brewed coffee, the scent mixed with a twinge of anxiety. Each sip was a reminder she was no longer a passive observer of her life, but a participant in a precarious game. She could feel the weight of her resolve shifting. It would no longer be enough to merely survive. She longed to reclaim her sense of agency. Every step outside transformed into a calculated measure of courage. Emily meticulously approached her daily routine with Mia, determined to shield her daughter from any encroaching shadows. That was until Mia struck up a friendship with a girl from the Marino household, Jessica, a fact that unnerved Emily. Would this tie bind her daughter to a world she was desperately trying to understand? She wrestled with the thought, fluctuating between the instinct to protect Mia and the hope that perhaps the contact would provide an opportunity for deeper insight into the hidden truths that surrounded them. One afternoon, Emily decided to bring the situation further into focus. She slipped into her worn sneakers, resolve steeling her spine. A walk around the block, she figured, was as good a time as any to gauge the neighborhood's pulse. As she strolled past her house, she mustered her courage to approach Harold, hoping he might share more of his wisdom. "Harold?" she called out as she spotted him tending to his small vegetable garden. He paused, a knowing look shimmering in his eyes as he motioned for her to join him. "I saw the way you've been keeping an eye on the Marinos, and I figured you'd have questions." His tone thrummed with both apprehension and respect. "I do. I don't want to overstep, but Mia has struck up a friendship with one of their kids. I need to know if my instincts about them are correct. Is Tony dangerous?" Harold straightened, the air thick with gravity. "Let me tell you something about instinct, Emily. It's a survival skill honed over time. You need to trust yours. There's a storm brewing over there. If you find yourself on the wrong side of it, things can get very dangerous very quickly." His words sank deeply, igniting a determined flame within Emily. "What do you suggest I do?" she pressed, her mind racing with possibilities. "Keep your eyes peeled," he advised, a flicker of concern passing over his features. "Knowledge is power. If you want to protect your daughter and confront this shadow, learn from what is hidden. But be ready should you choose to act on it, you may not like what you find." As she walked back home, Harold's words reverberated through her mind. Knowledge was her greatest asset, but it also came with risks. Emily felt a surge of resolve. She had faced dark corners of her existence before, and this time would be no different. She needed to dig deep to uncover the truth that lay beneath the Marino household and the chaos that surrounded it. That evening, as Mia chattered about her day, Emily listened intently, her heart flipping between admiration for her daughter's innocence and the terror of the unknown that loomed. Every moment was a reminder that her choices were not merely about her, they stretched into the future she envisioned for Mia, a future luminous and free from the toxic chains that had once drowned her. As Emily strategized how best to approach the challenge ahead, she resolved to harness every ounce of her determination to protect her daughter. A plan began to unfurl in her mind. She would infiltrate the mysteries surrounding the Marinos, not as a passive spectator but as an active seeker of truth. But little did she know, the deeper she delved into their world, the closer she danced with danger. The thought of approaching Tony Marino filled her with apprehension, yet the need for answers beckoned. Could she confront him directly? The moment of truth was closing in. How far was she willing to go to ensure the safety of her daughter? As those thoughts swirled, a chilling realization dawned upon her: a confrontation was brewing, and she needed to be ready. The tension wound tighter around her, each heartbeat echoing her resolve. It was now or never. The time had come to face the darkness she had previously feared. Emily's dreams that night were turbulent, flickering shadows dancing at the edges of her mind. Each nightmare taunted her with images of Tony Marino, his piercing gaze cutting through her, unraveling every facade she had meticulously built. As dawn broke, the weight of her resolve deepened. She recognized this was more than mere curiosity. It was a primal need to shield Mia, to reclaim her agency not just as a mother but as a woman who would no longer allow fear to dictate her life. Determined to prepare herself for whatever lay ahead, she knew she had to gather information about the Marinos. Initially, her mission felt voyeuristic, teetering on the edge of obsession. This was not just about Mia's friendship, it was about lengths she was willing to go to preserve her family's safety. She turned to the internet, combing through local news articles, social media platforms, seeking whispers of the Marinos' history. Surprisingly, she discovered a tangled web of tumultuous incidents. Ivan Marino, Tony's father, had a reputation that echoed through whispered conversations. The family had seemingly been entrenched in local controversies, allegations trailing like shadows that they deftly sidestepped. With each detail she uncovered, Emily lost herself in a dangerous cocktail of intrigue and fear. When Mia asked her about Jessica, Emily initially hesitated, memories of her own childhood innocence starkly clashing with the gritty realities she now faced. "Mom. Jessica invited me to her birthday party next week. Can I go?" The simple question anchored Emily's thoughts, and in that moment, she realized how urgent her situation had become. This wasn't just about understanding the Marinos, it was about being proactive. Yes, sweetheart. But I'd like to join you. We can meet her family together, she suggested, trying to mask her trepidation. Mia's face brightened, blissfully unaware of her mother's internal turmoil, but Emily couldn't shake the vivid image of the party, a facade painted over deep-seated dangers she had yet to fully uncover. With her strategy forming, Emily decided it was time to take the next step. She needed to observe the Marinos directly. She planned a casual trip to the local park, where she knew Jessica sometimes played. By positioning herself nearby, she aimed to blend into the scenery while simultaneously assessing the dynamics within the Marino family. On the designated day, she donned a pair of oversized sunglasses and a straw hat, hoping to evade recognition. Mia's laughter broke through her concentration as they approached the playground, and Emily's heart danced with an odd mix of pride and anxiety. As Mia ran off to join Jessica, Emily settled onto a bench, her eyes locked on the Marino family. Tony emerged from the shadows, seeming to command the space with an intoxicating presence. He barked a command to some neighborhood kids, an undercurrent of intimidation woven into his tone. Emily studied his interactions, her heart thudding as she noted the way others responded, hesitant and eager to please, as if they wielded knowledge that kept them on a tightrope. Danger crackled in the air, and with each passing moment, her sense of dread deepened. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, yet she remained glued to her seat, her mind racing through options. What did these observations reveal? Could she employ this newfound direction to protect her daughter, or would she just plunge them into greater risk? Just then, Mia caught sight of Tony and ran toward him, oblivious to the precariousness of the situation. Emily's heart seized, she mustered her courage and stood up, intent on closing the distance, ready to intervene, when Tony smiled, a sharp, knowing smile that felt like a challenge. As the gap narrowed between them, something shifted within Emily. The fear that once confined her transformed into a steely determination. She wasn't merely watching anymore, she was playing her part in this unfolding drama, confronting threats head-on, but as she stepped closer, a lingering question echoed in her mind: was she prepared? Not just to protect Mia, but to confront the monstrous truth behind the Marino household. What secrets might Tony reveal when faced with the truth of her own resolve? The moment stretched endlessly as Emily took a step closer to the looming figure of Tony Marino. Power radiated from him, wrapping around her like a suffocating fog. Each stride brought her feelings into sharper focus, she could feel her heart racing, adrenaline pumping through her veins. What was she preparing to do? Was she really ready to confront him, to challenge the air of control that surrounded him like a fortress? Mia giggled as she reached Tony, completely unaware of the tension ebbing and flowing between the adults. Disguised in her oversized sunglasses, Emily's mind raced with conflicting emotions, protective instincts clashing with the deep-seated fear of unveiling the truth. It broke her heart to think of what could happen if things went awry, yet she felt an undeniable urge to break free of her self-imposed constraints. "Mom, look! Jessica showed me how to swing," Mia called, laughing as she swung high into the air, her small figure vibrant against the dull backdrop of parental unease. Emily forced a smile, but her resolve was faint. She had once been the girl on the swing, full of innocence and free from the horrors lurking in the shadows. The juxtaposition jolted her back to reality. She was no longer just a bystander in her life, she was a mother, a protector. It was time to embrace the strength she had hidden from for too long. "Hey, Tony," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. As she addressed him, glimmers of the past echoed in her mind, memories laced with vulnerability and resignation from her former life. Those were the unwanted feelings she'd stowed away, the remnants of a toxic marriage that often echoed similar dynamics of control and fear. Tony turned slowly, his dark eyes analyzing her with a mix of curiosity and challenge. "Emily, right? Mia's mom." The slight smirk playing at the corner of his mouth ignited a fire in her belly. "That's right. We've heard so much about you and your family," she replied, injecting a warmth into her voice that didn't reflect her actual feeling. Emily could feel every word anchor her ground deeper, solidifying her presence. She squared her shoulders and met his gaze. The gray clouds of doubt that had loomed yesterday began to dissipate. Good to hear. He replied, his tone smooth, almost disarming. Mia's a great influence on Jessica. She noted the way he gestured with his hands, a slight movement that carried authority. It irritated her to see how effortlessly he commanded attention and respect from others. With every muscle in her body tensed, she fought the urge to recoil. Instead, she leaned in, subtly pushing past polite pleasantries. I've done some reading about your family. Quite the reputation in town. Tony's expression shifted infinitesimally, an imperceptible flicker that was both revealing and enigmatic. Words are often exaggerated, don't you think? It's all about perspective. Emily felt the delicate balance shifting. Here was her chance to assert herself further, to delve deeper into the unknown. Perspective can also lead to misunderstandings, she countered, holding her breath as curiosity twisted with fear. I want my daughter to have friends who are clear about their honesty and intent. A laugh escaped Tony's lips, touched with something like intrigue. Honesty, huh? He mused, his eyes gleaming with an edge of mischief. Well, that can be a rare commodity in this world. But make no mistake, I'll protect Jessica. Family means everything to me, he responded, his words laced with an undertone that felt deeply possessive. Emily felt the fight just beneath the surface of those words. Was he protective, or was there an implied threat? The instinct to flee battled with the stern resolve to stand firm for supposed safety. She clenched her fists and swallowed the lump in her throat, knowing she could not retreat. She had to dig deeper. As Mia returned, blissfully unaware of the tension, Emily realized the stakes had just risen. She felt the overwhelming urge to inquire further, to unveil the truth of the man standing before her. Every questioning thought pushed against a wall she instinctively knew she had to breach, no matter the cost. In that moment, clarity struck her. This meeting was only the beginning. She needed to navigate this tangled web, unraveling the threads that connected her to the Merinos, and regard each revelation as a stepping stone to reclaiming her power. But as laughter filled the air, she heard another voice, faint but distinct, that only intensified her doubt and suspicion. Someone had been eavesdropping from the nearby benches, a shadowy figure slipping away just as she glanced up. Was her pursuit of truth becoming more dangerous than she anticipated? As Emily stood there, heart pounding and pulse quickening, she felt a rush of conflicting emotions swirl within her. The laughter of children seemed to mock the serious undercurrents of her confrontation with Tony. She was no longer merely an observer in her life, she had a role to play, a fierce protector. But at what cost? Mia, oblivious to the tension, swung higher, her joy juxtaposed with the weight pressing heavily on Emily's chest. That innocent laughter reminded her of happier times, the simplicity of parenting before the specter of fear and doubt entered her life. I can't be afraid. I won't be afraid, Emily muttered under her breath, a mantra she wasn't sure she believed just yet. She took a deep breath, summoning her courage to advance further toward the unknown, ready to confront not just Tony, but her own demons. Do you really think you can protect your family from me? Tony's voice cut through her thoughts with a sharpness that momentarily stunned her. It was a challenge wrapped in something darker, a warning. Emily felt her resolve sharpen as she cocked an eyebrow and held his gaze steady. What do you mean by that? She forced the words out, feeling their weight linger heavy between them. Shaking off the remnants of her doubt, she pressed for clarity, seeking truth in the shadows that cloaked their conversation. Tony shrugged nonchalantly, the corner of his mouth curving into a smirk that only fueled her fire. You've made your intentions clear. But you see, Emily, the truth is never just black and white. There are layers to this world that you don't yet know. You'd be wise to tread carefully. She internalized his words, her mind racing to dissect the implications. Could it be that the family she sought to distance herself from had connections that spanned deeper than neighborhood gossip? The thought made her skin crawl, but she couldn't let that fear control her now. Mia slipped her hand into Emily's, pulling her back to the present with innocent anticipation. Mom, can you push me higher? She called, eyes sparkling with excitement, pulling Emily's focus away from the dangerously charming figure of Tony. As Emily complied, pushing her daughter higher into the air, the routine of the swing transformed into a metaphor for her own struggles. Each push felt like a defiance against the invisible hold Tony's presence exerted over her. She could redefine the narrative, one small act of defiance at a time, but the moment was fleeting. Mia's laughter suddenly filled the air, but Emily felt a chill creep down her spine as she caught sight of the shadowy figure who had been eavesdropping. It was gone now, a specter that had slinked away before she could fully process what it meant. Paranoia welled up inside her, and she couldn't shake off the feeling she was being watched, as if unseen eyes were tracking her moves. What was that? She whispered to herself, scanning the park for any sign of the figure. Was it just her imagination playing tricks on her, or had her pursuit of truth attracted unwanted attention? Mom. Mia's voice broke her distraction. She turned to her daughter, forcing a smile, but the warmth didn't reach her eyes. When had her life transformed into a cautious dance of political intrigue? Mia, sweetheart, let us go home, Emily said softly, her heart still pounding, not from exhilaration but from the weight of her emerging reality. We have some things to talk about. As they walked to the car, the veil of safety felt thinner than ever. Each step echoed the undeniable truth. She was stepping into a world filled with uncertainty and hidden dangers, driven by the need to safeguard her daughter and reclaim the life she had lost. Emily glanced back at Tony, whose smirk felt more like a challenge than a friendly victory. The conversations they shared were only threads in a larger tapestry she needed to untangle. That drive home would not simply be a return to the mundane, it would be a strategizing session for the information she needed to gather, the truths she needed to confront, and perhaps even allies she had yet to recognize. The moment of understanding sharpened, Emily realized she must confront not just Tony but the very fabric of the life he represented. The days of silence were coming to an end. Just as they reached the car, Emily caught sight of movement from the corner of her eye, another glimpse of that ominous figure lurking in the distance, this time standing still, as if waiting for her next move. Was her growing determination to uncover the truth inviting danger closer to home? The sense of urgency surged within her. She had to act before the shifting tides consumed her. How deep did this mystery run, and was she prepared for what lay beneath its surface? Emily's fingers trembled slightly as she gripped the steering wheel. The hum of the engine seemed to echo the storm of thoughts raging within her. Each tick of the clock was a reminder of the time slipping away, the weight of knowledge burdening her. She wasn't driving home, she was navigating into territory fraught with uncertainty, and every moment felt like a countdown to conflict. Mia, she turned to her daughter, who was happily humming in the back seat, blissfully unaware of the tension that enveloped her mother. What do you want to do tonight? Can we watch that movie with the brave princess? Mia asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Emily smiled, but in her mind, the princess was no longer just a character, she became a symbol of courage and resilience, traits Emily yearned to embody in her own life. She needed that bravery now. Once home, Emily cast one last glance outside. The street felt eerily normal, but something lurked beneath the surface. Had Tony seen her? The implication made her short of breath. She wasn't a victim. Not anymore. The resolve that had begun to spark in the park now ignited, burning away remnants of fear. She needed to prepare. After tucking Mia into bed, Emily settled at the kitchen table, cluttering it with legal pads, a laptop, and any notes she could muster from a desperate information hunt. She pored over local news articles, hoping to uncover anything that would provide insight into Tony's connections. The thread she needed to pull. A muffled sound interrupted her concentration, and she froze, feeling the prickle of eyes on the back of her neck. Was it just her imagination, or was someone there, lurking? She shook off the chill, scolding herself for being paranoid. She had to be stronger than that. She opened her laptop and began searching for any mention of Tony's family, digging through public records and online databases. Each click of the mouse felt like a brush against danger, but she pushed through. Emily's heart raced as she turned up various leads on Tony's associates, none of whom appeared particularly savory. There was a pattern here. His world weaved into the fabric of organized crime, the layers of threat exposed online made it clear what she was up against. In the hours that followed, Emily found herself sinking deeper and deeper into a rabbit hole of facts, connections, and fears. She recognized the stakes. If she pursued this, there was no going back. She would be stepping into a realm where she might lose everything: her safety, her daughter's innocence, or even her own life. As the sun began to rise, a sense of clarity emerged through her exhaustion. The endless nights of pretending to be unaware were over. She would take the fight to Tony's doorstep. Emily realized she discerned something hidden within herself, a wellspring of power and cunning she hadn't known existed. She could be the protector she longed to be. With a strong cup of coffee fueling her determination, she typed out a message to an old acquaintance, a former journalist who had dabbled in crime reporting. Perhaps he could provide her with insight and ally in this daunting quest. Just then, the hair on the back of her neck stood at attention as she heard a faint noise outside. Was it her imagination, or had that ominous figure returned? Heart hammering, she moved cautiously toward the window. What she saw sent her mind racing. It wasn't just a shadow this time, it was a vehicle parked across the street, engine running, and the faint outline of a figure slumped inside. How deep was her entanglement with this dangerous game, and would she have to confront it head-on much sooner than she anticipated? As the realization settled, the air grew thick with tension. She wouldn't back down. But the question lingered: would her choice to seek the truth lead her closer to saving herself, or into the very clutches of the danger she meant to escape? The game was shifting, and Emily stood at a precipice, unsure whether to flee or dive deeper. The time had come to face her past and redefine her future. Would her newfound strength carry her through the darkness? Emily's pulse quickened as she watched the shadowy figure in the vehicle, each passing second amplifying her anxiety. The neighborhood, once a sanctuary, transformed into a cage of potential threats. In that moment, Emily knew she could no longer be reactive, she had to be proactive. She returned to the kitchen table, the clutter of papers feeling more like weapons, tools that could forge her path forward. The vibrant energy coursing through her veins pushed back the weight of dread, transforming it into adrenaline. With renewed purpose, she began outlining a plan. It was no longer about mere survival, it was about strategy, focus, and execution. Emily could not afford to be reckless, nor could she allow fear to dictate her actions. Fingers flying over the keyboard, she compiled data on Tony's known associates and tracked financial transactions linked to his name. Each discovery ignited further determination. The deeper she went, the more connections she uncovered. It was like piecing together a jigsaw puzzle. The picture slowly revealing itself was unsettling yet empowering. As she typed, another sound pulled her attention: a muffled engine revving outside, closer this time. Emily braced herself, anxiety mixing with an ounce of thrill. With calculated caution, she peeked through the curtain. The figure still slumped in their seat, yet now their heads slowly lifted, revealing a face she couldn't recognize. An unknown variable in her newly crafted equation: fleeing was not an option. Drawing from the strength she felt stirring within, Emily embraced her resolve to face the unknown. She grabbed her phone, texting her journalist friend with urgency, "I need to meet. Important." The response was immediate, confirming their rendezvous the following day, a small relief amid the surging tides of uncertainty. With Mia asleep just down the hall, Emily knew she had limited time. She poured herself another cup of coffee, the bitter taste awakening her even further. This was a moment of transformation. She would no longer be the victim. She was setting the stage for her own reclamation. The night felt endless, and the hours slipped away quickly as she prepared. While the laptop flickered with information, a new awareness settled over Emily. She was entering a domain fraught with danger, yet for the first time, she believed she could navigate it without losing herself. Questioning her instincts had paralyzed her for too long, and she refused to let self-doubt dictate her journey. Still, as if the universe were testing her resolve, the figure in the vehicle shifted. Emily froze, heart thudding like a war drum. They were watching her. Only an instinctive surge of adrenaline propelled her movements as she ducked out of sight, each thought laser-focused. In the precarious tug-of-war between fear and empowerment, something vital sparked within her a burgeoning sense of agency. She wasn't just uncovering Tony's world, she was also redefining her own role within it. Every investigative lead became a step toward liberation, not a leash binding her to a past she sought to leave behind. That as dawn began to break, casting soft light across her cluttered kitchen, Emily faced a new reality. The path ahead was dangerous, but it was also ripe with opportunity. The hunt for the truth was only beginning, and each thread she pulled could either unravel her world further or weave together a new one. Yet, amid this confrontation with danger, a lingering uncertainty clawed at her insides. What if every step she took drew her closer not just to the truth about Tony, but to an inevitable clash with him? A confrontation that could reveal far more about her strength than she was prepared for. With her heart racing, she breathed deeply, steeling herself for the challenge ahead. The morning light symbolized hope, but it also cast shadows on her resolve. It was time to confront not only the looming threat outside but the fears nested within her. What had she truly unearthed within herself, and how far was she willing to go to protect her newfound strength? That charged question hung in the air like electric anticipation. Would her journey toward empowerment culminate in victory, or lead to a reckoning that would change everything? The sunlight poured into the kitchen, illuminating the stacks of papers and her laptop in a way that felt almost surreal. Emily's heart rate gradually slowed, merging caution with resolve as she formed a rhythm in her new reality. She spent the next hour meticulously cataloging her findings, piecing together connections that threatened to expose hidden truths. It was all at her fingertips now: financial records, names linked to Tony, and places where incriminating exchanges occurred. With each keystroke, Emily felt the power shift. She was no longer just a mother fleeing from a broken home, she was stepping into the role of a detective, an investigator determined to lay bare the operations of a network that had long been obscured by shadows. The evidence she compiled was not just corrective, it was potentially explosive. Just as a wave of satisfaction washed over her, the earlier thrill was replaced by a gnawing doubt. What if she ventured too far? What if she found herself unearthing something she wasn't prepared to face? As she pondered these questions, her gaze flickered to the window. The vehicle remained parked, and with it, the figure within the unknown variable that could tip the scale of her already precarious balance. A sudden caffeine-fueled determination took hold. This wasn't just about Tony anymore, it was about her place in this maze of deception. Grabbing a notebook, Emily sketched out a flowchart depicting Tony's connections, marking each crucial relationship with a different color. It was an act of visualization that made the ominous world seem less daunting. She paused, realizing that her meticulous documentation represented more than information, it was a lifeline. Each link she observed mirrored her own journey. Here she was, crafting strategies and tracing adversaries, while back in that dark chapter of her life, escaping Tony had felt like a desperate attempt to merely survive. A sudden thought struck: she needed insight beyond her own observations. Mia's small room down the hall suddenly felt paradoxically both a refuge and a limitation. For too long, Emily had confined herself to the role of caretaker and survivor. It was beneath that facade that she had grown stronger, but now she needed to access outside knowledge, experience that transcended her walls. With her determination rejuvenated, Emily sent a follow-up message to her journalist friend, Mia's godmother, who had often covered stories about organized crime. It was a calculated risk, asking for deeper insights. Need your ear for something sensitive. Meet this afternoon. Feeling invigorated, she injected energy into her preparations. As she folded papers, clearing the clutter around her, an unusual sensation unfurled in her chest, a mix of apprehension and exhilaration. Each decision felt like stepping closer to a precipice, where the leap could define everything that came after. In the midst of this anticipation, her phone vibrated. It was a notification, a news alert about a significant bust in a local organized crime operation. Emily's heart raced. Perhaps these stories were not just history but intersections of her present. She had been spinning in circles, and now names she recognized leapt to the forefront with connections to her own life that had not yet revealed their danger. The car outside shifted again, drawing her attention back to the window. This time, she did not hide. Instead, she studied the intensely focused gaze of the occupant who now seemed intent on her. The sensation stirred something primal in her. Her instincts flared, warning her of the approach of confrontation, but within the fright was an undeniable spark of strength. Each glance exchanged with that figure crystallized her resolve. She was standing at a fork, and at this moment, one path led to fear while the other propelled her toward confrontation. Tension thrummed through her body as she slid the curtain aside just a fraction more. Eyes met. A silent recognition formed, tethered to the understanding that Tony wasn't the only one watching now. She was ready, not for fear but for clarity. The day ahead would test her courage, and as she connected the dots between her past and present, the truth loomed larger than before. What would she discover in the confrontation that awaited? And would it lead to her empowerment or the unraveling of everything she had fought to reclaim? The stakes had never been higher, and with every passing moment, the answers approached like a storm on the horizon. How far would she go to face the truth, and what depths of herself had yet to be uncovered in this pursuit? Emily's heart hammered in her chest as she watched the figure in the car, the weight of the moment pressing down on her like a leaden fog. Questions spiraled in her mind, each fleck of uncertainty battling against her newfound courage. Was this person merely an observer or a harbinger of a much darker reality? The sun flickered through the clouds outside, casting brief shadows across her cluttered kitchen, a reminder that light and dark could coexist in tumultuous ways. She turned from the window, seeking refuge in her own thoughts, the pages on her desk swirling in possibilities. Diving deeper into the undercurrents of her life now felt imperative. It was no longer enough to simply catalog evidence. She needed a plan, a roadmap that would navigate through not just Tony's world, but through the labyrinth she had created for herself. Emily reached for her notebook and began jotting down the implications of what she had learned thus far. Names linked to Tony, the details of transactions, whispered conversations caught at the edges of her memory, each represented a thread she could tug on. However, the tapestry she sought was complex. The deeper she delved, the more she began to see how interconnected her life had been with this sinister network, how its influence had woven itself into her very existence. Every name she wrote stirred an array of emotions: fury, fear, and a semblance of hope flickered in rhythm with her pen strokes. The realizations were dizzying, revealing hidden facets of herself that she had overlooked during the darker days with Tony. She closed her eyes, recalling the woman who once defined herself solely through nurturing and survival. That woman was gone, replaced by something much more formidable. As the hours passed, Emily shifted from passive observer to tactician. She began to outline potential confrontations or avenues of inquiry. Instead of waiting for information to come to her, she considered proactively seeking it out. With Mia's godmother as an ally, she could mine professional insights and gather additional perspectives to fuel her mission. The sunlight began to fade, shadows lengthening around her, casting the house in a twilight hue that felt strangely appropriate. This was the moment she was on the brink of transitioning from someone who had merely survived to someone who could thrive. But there was still the threat waiting outside. She could not let her guard down. Just when she thought she had a solid plan, her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Mia's godmother, an open heart combined with urgency pulsating through the words. "Meet at the cafe off Main, tomorrow. I'll bring everything I can dig up." The acceptance and acknowledgement of her request lit a fire inside Emily. It was more than a response, it was a shared commitment to uncover truths and wield their combined strength against a common adversary. But even as anticipation surged, caution reigned. What if they were treading into territory designed to intimidate them? Did this new alliance put Mia in additional danger? The stakes were ever increasing, a web of consequences unfolding before her. As evening settled, Emily flicked off her laptop and stood, a sense of rebirth igniting an inner drive that urged her forward. She straightened her back and faced the window once more, eyes now sharpened with intent. The car was still there. Whether it was a mere coincidence or a calculated surveillance, she felt a visceral need to confront it. With determination infusing her every action, Emily moved toward the door, her heart steadying in rhythm with her newfound resolve. She stepped out into the cool air, inhaling deeply. This time, she wasn't just stepping outside, she was stepping into the arena of her own life. And there was no turning back now, but as she glanced back at the car, the figure inside remained eerily still, a shadow against the gathering darkness. Emily raised her chin, bolstered by something deeper than fear. She had a purpose now, a mission that transcended her past. The questions loomed larger, demanding answers that threatened to unravel her very understanding of safety. What awaited her behind that tinted glass? Would she find clarity or madness? Only one thing was certain: she was ready to shatter the silence and unveil the truth, whatever it might entail. Emily took a deep breath as she stood outside her home, the weight of her newfound determination settling over her like a protective armor. The shadows clung to her, the ominous figure in the car looming in her periphery, but she was no longer the terrified woman who fled her past. Every moment spent deciphering the buried truths about the Marino family had turned her fear into an electric fuel, compelling her to confront the darkness head-on. As she approached the vehicle, the intense grip of apprehension mixed with a fierce clarity. The figure inside shifted slightly, and in that fleeting moment of eye contact, she felt a spark of recognition of shared understanding, or perhaps it was a silent acknowledgement of the thrilling game they were both playing. That fleeting connection filled her with resolve. This wasn't just about her safety, it was about protecting Mia, reclaiming her narrative, and proving to herself that she wouldn't be intimidated. With a steady voice that betrayed no hint of apprehension, she called out, "Who are you?" The figure remained still for a heartbeat longer before pushing the door open. A man stepped out, his face partially obscured by shadows. Immediately, red flags waved in Emily's mind. Was he an ally or another enemy hidden in plain sight? Something inside her flickered, urging caution. "I'm not here to threaten you," he replied, his voice low and measured. "I know about you, Emily, the strength you've shown, escaping your past. I want to help." The words, unexpected yet crucial, hung in the air, and Emily's resolve hardened at the notion that there were those who acknowledged her struggle. A flicker of skepticism flashed through her but was quickly crushed under the weight of urgency. "What do you know, and how can you help me?" she asked, her guard raised but her curiosity piqued. "I'm part of a network that tracks organized crime," he said, taking a small step toward her. "I work to expose the truth, and I believe you've got pieces to the puzzle that could take Tony Marino down. You have to trust me right now." A rush of adrenaline spurred her heart to race. The unknown intricacies of this shadowy world had always terrified her, but standing here, poised on the brink of transparency, she finally recognized her own strength, unshackled from the fear of her past. "I'm listening," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "What do you need from me?" "Every detail you've uncovered about Tony, his operations, his connections. Let's put them together. When you meet my contact tomorrow with Lauren, your daughter's godmother, I'll be there. We can formulate a plan to gather evidence. This is your moment to take control." The weight of his words resonated deeply, rekindling the fierce warrior spirit that had long laid dormant within Emily. For far too long, she felt passive, but today would mark her transformation from a victim into an agent of change. As they exchanged information, Emily sensed the winds of fate shifting in her favor. She was no longer navigating the shadows alone, she was linking arms with allies committed to revealing the truth. The following day, as she met her friends in a quaint café filled with warm sunlight, she felt an exhilarating rush infusing her spirit. The conversation buzzed with excitement as they dissected every detail she had discovered about Tony, his dealings, past run-ins with the law, and connections straddling shady businesses. On the brink of clarity, Emily realized that each shared word was stitching her narrative together, empowering her to confront whatever lay ahead. Their gathering felt electric, every moment convinced her they were on the cusp of dismantling a web of deception. That night, as Emily tucked Mia in bed, she gazed down at her daughter, so innocent and oblivious to the looming danger. An overwhelming surge of love intertwined with fierce protectiveness filled her. Emily had not only committed to shielding her child, she was embracing her role as a mother warrior, ready to fight tooth and nail for the life they both deserved. Days turned into weeks as Emily collaborated closely with her newfound allies. The stakes escalated. She continued gathering evidence under a cloak of secrecy. Each revelation peeled back layers of the intricate facade Tony had built around himself. The shadows that once felt looming turned into companions, urging her closer to the truth. Then came the moment of reckoning. With the last pieces of evidence compiled, Emily felt adrenaline coursing through her veins. She would put everything on the line. The night before the confrontation, she stood in front of her mirror, no longer the shadow of her former self, but a woman forged in the fires of adversity. The following day, as she stood before Tony in a calculated face-off, the adrenaline built to a crescendo. "You think the truth is hidden beneath layers of lies?" she challenged, staring him down. "You underestimate the power of a mother determined to protect her child." She felt immense satisfaction as the words echoed around them, resonating with meaning and conviction. Upon exposing his dealings, revealing the ties that linked him to unsanctioned operations, she watched the flicker of surprise cross his face. She had not only reclaimed her narrative but asserted her presence within it, a victor against the shadows. With the law swiftly approaching, she felt a weight lift, a triumphant catharsis washing over her. No longer did she stand intimidated. She had conquered her greatest fears, driven by love, bravery, and an unwavering determination to protect the light in her life. Her transformation was complete. Emily emerged as a figure of strength, now not only a survivor but a beacon of resilience, armed with knowledge and community support, ready to embrace whatever future awaited her. The shadows of her past were merely stepping stones on her incredible journey toward empowerment, and in that moment, as dawn broke over her renewed life, she knew she would never have to run from darkness again. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to the channel to keep up with exclusive emotional stories like this. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and ensure these transformative tales reach those who need inspiration. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. Let's spread the power of personal overcoming. Comment below your thoughts and theories about Emily's journey. Your voice matters.